just out of curiosity, if they try to start to, if they're literally asking me like, so sir, how did you know that he have a gun? Or sir, what did the guy tell you to do? Why did you shoot him? Like when they start going there, then how do I navigate that?
I'm going to show you. You ready?
Yep. Oh my gosh. What's up, guys? I'm John Keys from Guns Out TV, and I have the pleasure again to sit with Sean Curtis from QVO Tactical with over 2 decades of law enforcement experience to have a conversation that's so important about how to interact with law enforcement after a self-defense incident. You know, I don't think people give enough thought into what that means when you have a self-defense incident, no matter whether you're in the right or even if it's questionable or whatever the case may be, of what you should be prepared to articulate and explain to the police when they arrive. Sean, I'm glad to unpack this with you, brother.
Oh man, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. So I think a lot of people take for granted that if they're in their homes, somebody breaks in, that they have the right to do whatever they have to do to defend themselves. They may even have the illusion that no matter what happens, they're all the way in the right and this other person's all the way in the wrong. Is that the case?
Yeah, we have something in America called castle doctrine, and it affords someone in their domicile. I'm not going to even say house because you could be in a tent on your property, you could be in your house, you could be in your apartment. Wherever you live, you have certain rights and an expectation that you're able to defend yourself. And a lot of that is based on the fact that you are in your house or you're in your domicile. You're not out in a situation where maybe you contributed to an event that now is occurring. No, you're at home, maybe you're asleep, maybe you're watching TV, you're doing something, and someone has come into your home. So, right, the government has said, yes, through our constitutional rights, through the laws of the land, most places you've got castle doctrine that's going to protect you if you take actions to defend yourself.
Okay. So I can shoot him in the head. I'm just asking.
I never want to give absolutes because every scenario is going to be different. And there have been cases where people have mistakenly, maybe even drunkenly come to a house and thought they were at their home and tried to push in the door and come in. So I think that every situation is going to be different. But I would say that as a general rule, if somebody is kicking your door in, you still have an obligation to figure out what that threat is. I think it's going to be better in the long run if you at least take a second to figure out, hey, are they armed? Is this a travesty? Is this some kind of mistake that could end in a really bad situation? Because that's going to play well in the long run.
Right.
A lot of times in self-defense situations, whether it's training, whether we're getting it from media or social media, we're thinking about the short term. And what I want to talk about today is strategic approaches.
Right.
Because we're not thinking, how is this going to look to a prosecutor after the event? And there are a lot of things that I think we can do to better improve our situation.
Right. And guys, I was just using that as a jarring approach to the conversation, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's also as important how you articulate what happened, right? Whenever the legal officials arrive. So walk me through that. Like walk me through. I just put a person down that has come into my domicile. I've called the cops. I said they just picked up the phone. What do I say?
I'm glad you stopped there because I'm going to pump the brakes right here. Your next threat is coming, okay? But when you call 911, you need to be intentionally short. Because what happens is there's a recording from the time of the incident moving forward. And you can't think okay, tomorrow everything's going to be all right because I got through this situation. You've got to think 6 months down the road. You've got to think a year, sometimes even 2 or 3, because a prosecution can take that long.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to start planning things out a little bit better than just for the right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get on the phone and you call in, be very short. Say, someone broke into my house and I defended myself. Please send law enforcement. Please send an ambulance if an ambulance is required.
Of course.
Right? And the dispatcher is going to badger you. They are going to ask you so many questions.
Uh-huh.
And here's why. Law enforcement is on their way there. They don't know what happened. They're going to be rolling hot. That's exciting. And a shooting is always very exciting because now an officer is responding and knows that a firearm has been involved in a situation, and that's a potential risk to them.
Right.
That elevates their awareness. And so now there's going to be a different mindset when they arrive at your house.
Right.
The one thing that a dispatcher can do to help that officer out is provide them with more information, right? If you suddenly were the first to go, but the last to know what the heck was going on, you would be saying, hey, find out what's going on. So a dispatcher is going to do everything they can to keep you on the phone, keep you calm, and then get information out of you. Don't do it.
Wow. Okay. I mean, because it's like a little counterintuitive when you think about it, right? Because I just defended myself. Now I'm doing the right thing. I'm calling for law enforcement to come and, make sure everything is, okay in the situation. And you're asking me questions, and I don't feel like I've done anything wrong. So I feel like I can tell you exactly what happened. I can start, articulating that. But of course, we know I may have brain fog because I'm traumatized at this point. I'm excited, as you say,
right.
So where do you strike that balance? Like how can we comprehend why we're supposed to be brief, but we're supposed to also, comply? Walk me through that.
I might differ with you on that.
Okay.
Here's where I want people to comply.
Okay.
When law enforcement arrives on scene, you need to do everything you can because your next challenge is to not be shot by that responding officer or officers. Okay? They don't know what they're coming into.
Right.
So they're going to start giving commands. They're going to try to approach from a tactical position of advantage. And they're going to look and not expose themselves and maybe even call you out. Okay? They'll start asking you initial questions that are going to try to give them at least a basic picture of what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the first things I wanted to know when I responded to a shooting was, where's the gun? Where's the gun? Right? Because if it's in your pocket or if it's lying on the floor, that's going to be different for me because that raises or lowers the threat profile. Right? That's how nervous do I have to be right now? Do I have to have my gun pointed at you? Or can I relax a little bit knowing that maybe the only gun that's involved in this situation is on the floor?
Right.
So, like I say with any law enforcement interaction, comply, get through it, survive, and then maybe you fight later if you need to. Not good to fight at that moment, not good to resist, not good to argue, but also do not give up information.
Now, are you talking about to the dispatch or to the arriving officer?
Yes.
The arriving. Wait.
Both.
Okay.
And here's why. You really have to start moving from that tactical scenario to 6 months, 12 months, 2 years down the road and think about the trail of breadcrumbs that you're leaving, okay? Because every time you make a statement, whether it's on 911, whether it's to an initial responding officer, sometimes even if you speak with an EMT or a firefighter who comes in to offer medical aid, you are leaving a trail that is going to lock you in.
Right.
Okay? And that is not intuitive. You mentioned doing the right thing earlier. That is a great motivation. And there are officers who will absolutely utilize that. Hey man, what happened here? There's a guy lying on the floor and he doesn't look like he's doing too well. What can you tell me about that? Right? you're like, okay, wow, I've just been through, like you said, an emotionally traumatizing experience, and now I've got relief here in sight, and I really want to unburden myself,
Yep.
right? There's psychological components that go into this, things that we get from our upbringing, right? Like it's not right to lie. It's not right to not tell the truth either, right? Either by omission. So you have a scenario where you're almost compelled. Sometimes religious components play a part, right? I want to unburden myself. Man, I got to share this with somebody. That officer?
Ain't the person.
No,
Not the person.
no.
So Sean, this is so interesting to me. Okay, so when you initially described how an officer may arrive because there's been shots fired, I just report I put an intruder down, the dispatcher's passing this off to the officer. Paint you a picture. Scenario: I'm in my home. I'm in my bedroom, which is on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say I put the intruder down at the bottom of the stairs. I'm on the 3rd floor, bottom of the stairs. I put the intruder down right there. I'm not going down there, right? I'm staying right where I am. I'm talking to the cops on the way. Great. All of that stuff is happening, right? So let's say we get that overzealous cop. Let's say we get that cop that doesn't really understand what's going on, right? He comes into the house and you said he's going to start potentially barking commands at me. Now, depending on if that police officer pulls up to the back of my home, right? The windows that face those stairs face the front of the home. I won't be able to see siren lights to know that, okay, yes, the cops are here, right? Now I have somebody yelling from the bottom of the stairs or that 2nd floor saying, all right, throw your gun down here or something like that, depending on how it's like, what do I say to that person to try to validate that person's identity in that moment?
Right. So that is one resource with the 911 dispatcher that you can utilize because they'll keep you there at least until the officer has made contact with you.
So they can validate his arrival.
Right. You can absolutely tell that dispatcher, hey, I'm in a white shirt that says Guns Out TV. I have a red cap that's on backwards. I have really swole arms. I look really good. And I'm on the 3rd floor. I'm the person who doesn't have bullet holes in them. Okay?
Okay.
But then again, I'm being a little glib.
No, for sure.
You want to describe yourself and at least let them know where you are. Tell them that you are armed, but you are the homeowner.
Gotcha.
Okay? Because, like I said, the thing that's going to happen is whenever you say something, it's almost indelible. You cannot erase it.
Right.
And it's going to be used as evidence. And a prosecutor is going to use something called impeachment. Okay? There's a case in Austin right now. A young man was charged for shooting another young man down on 6th Street. He was just convicted. And part of the reason that he was convicted was the defense came up with, hey, this was a self-defense issue. Okay? Unfortunately for that young man, he didn't mention self-defense when he talked to the officers at first.
Wow.
Okay? So what's going to happen now is that's going to get in front of a jury, and you're going to have conservative people, you're going to have liberal people, you're going to have a mix of everything in between. And they're going to listen to that. And they're going to say, oh, well, you went this way at first, but then you took a zig after you caught your defense attorney, and now you're saying this. So you get one chance to tell that story. And I cannot impart how crucial it is that you keep that clean.
Yeah.
Because when you get with your defense attorney, right? Look at USCCA, man. That's the service that they provide. When you get with that attorney, that's when you start crafting your narrative, okay? Now, I'm not saying we're making stuff up.
No, for sure.
But a lot of what we're doing is based in perspective.
Of course.
Okay? You're not going to be yourself. And you may feel compelled to tell some stories. Like, oh man, I couldn't believe he came in. I was so scared and this is what happened next. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. Because you only get one chance to tell that story. And I mentioned impeachment. Here's what happens. If you say this happened, and then later on, while you're going through trial, the defense crafts another version and they'll do their best to match up with what you've already got because that's unavoidable. If there's a discrepancy, they're going to say no. They're going to impeach you. And that basically means assail your credibility. They're going to say you're not credible. You say one thing here, and then you say another thing here now that you're caught, now that you're in trouble.
Right.
And brother, that does not work well. People, the average juror doesn't know that much about the law. I mean, the average citizen doesn't know that much about the law. But they come into a trial, they get educated on what's going to happen, and then they have to listen to the prosecution's side of things.
Yeah.
Then the defense gets their turn. They say things. And ultimately, when you have a situation where somebody says one thing and then deviates and goes another way, and it's documented. Oh man, we have you on the body cam. You said this. Oh, then you told the dispatcher this. And now you're saying this? Most people know how to tell when someone's not telling the truth.
Yeah.
And when you have a situation where the story starts winding around, man, that's rough.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
So the best thing to do, say nothing or say as little as possible.
Only like the most, I guess, obvious and relevant information.
Yeah.
Like where you are, what
Right.
you have on. Don't get into over describing the scenario.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's hard because again, anytime you call 911, it's like I got to tell them what's going on, and that dispatcher is going to hammer you. They are going to ask you so many questions.
So just out of curiosity, if they try to start to, if they're literally asking me like, so sir, how did you know that he have a gun? Or sir, what did the guy tell you to do? Why did you shoot him? Like when they start going there, then how do I navigate that?
I'm going to show you. Ready?
Yep. Oh my gosh. So now, playing devil's advocate, I'm being silent. The person's on the. So is the dispatcher not? What could the dispatcher at that point be telling the law enforcement officer that's coming into the situation? Okay, the homeowner is non-responsive. Is that kind of what the message that they're passing along? So at that point, it's a roll of the dice of how this law enforcement officer is gonna approach the situation.
It might get their back up a little bit. So the thing that you can think about is saying something like, listen, I understand that you need to communicate to the officer and try and describe the scene that's going on here. I want you to understand that I am not willing to discuss this situation without counsel present. Okay? So you talk about cooperating, right? Complying. I absolutely advocate for that whenever there's an officer with a gun at my house and he's giving me commands. Yes, yes, yes. But if that officer starts asking you questions that pertain to the incident, you can simply say, I have no statement to make without the presence of counsel.
So that literally segues me right into my next question. At which point would a USCCA member want to call that number and have that conversation? At what point in this scenario?
Man, the logistics involved there are going to be, I'm sure that they have a quick response program, but it depends on when it happens, right? If it's in the middle of the day, sure, it's probably a quick phone call. You can get somebody rolling. But a lot of home invasions happen at night.
In the middle of the night, right.
And so what you're looking at there is having to call, get on that hotline, get somebody fired up, get them moving, right? And I'm sure they're practiced, right? They know what they're doing there. But I would do it as quickly as possible.
Right.
If someone is with you, if someone else has a phone.
Have them do it maybe while you're even on the phone with the dispatch. That's smart. Yeah, absolutely. Because like you said, there's going to be a little bit of a lag time depending on what time of the day it is.
Right. Okay. And here's the other thing that this is beneficial to, because you've got to question your state of mind, your emotional state. Your heart rate is going to be insane. You might have something like auditory exclusion happen. You might have tunnel vision. There's all kinds of things that happen on a sliding scale as your heart rate goes up, and it's none of them are good.
Right.
But if you call USCCA, that person, whoever you talk to, they're going to tell you what I'm telling you.
No, agreed.
Don't make any statements.
Yeah.
Do not say anything to law enforcement. Yeah, USCCA has their membership card, and on the back of that card, they simplify those instructions. I'm going to read them to you right here.
Okay.
Post-incident instructions. Number 1, call 911. Explain, I was attacked, feared for my life, and had to defend myself. Request, please send both police and an ambulance to this location. Number 2, and this is the one that we talked about, call USCCA Critical Response Team, 1-877-677-1919. Make sure that's in your phone so that you don't have to look it up. Number 3, when responding officers arrive, comply. We've discussed that in depth. Follow all police instructions. Explain, I was attacked, feared for my life, and had to defend myself. Identified. Point out evidence, witnesses, and attacker. Medical. Request medical attention if necessary. And golden silence. I will cooperate 100%, but first I need my attorney. Do not talk further without your lawyer present.
Wow. Wow. This has been an enlightening conversation. You know, I think it's, wow. Because, you know, I just recently finished a rifle instructor course. And everything about that course, the context of that was self-defense. And you get to a point in the training where, okay, you've put rounds on target, you've eliminated the threat or neutralized the threat, and then now what's next from a firearms handling perspective, right? It's like, okay, searching for other threats, you don't want to shoot the cops, all these different things, right? And they marry up very accurately to what you're saying, actions to the mindset and the other actions that you're taking that don't involve the gun, who you're calling, what you're going to say, what you're not going to say.
Right.
All equally important. You should be a part of the class, man. Why aren't you part of the class, Sean?
I'd love to be.
Yeah.
I'd love to be in that class. Yeah, you know, there's a tough transition when you look at that place where if you have a suspect down in your home and law enforcement is responding, I recommend, let's say that the situation changed. Let's say you're out somewhere in your car. Someone comes up and draws a gun on you and you're able to defend yourself, right? In that scenario, you're still going to need to call, right? But I cannot recommend surrendering your firearm or even securing your firearm until that threat is not a threat anymore, right? Now, that might mean getting back in your car and removing yourself from the situation, okay? Because the transition then is going to be, how do we get law enforcement to take over the scene without shooting me? Because that's your next challenge. That's what you've got to look forward to, and you've got to surpass that. So it's touch and go, but you absolutely have to make sure that that threat is no longer threatening you, because otherwise you keep them covered.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Another thing to consider is, we talked about training. We spent a lot of time talking about training just yesterday. Scenario-based training is another great avenue, because we talked about the how. We want to go fast. We want to be accurate. We want to be able to access our gun quickly. But the why is so much more important.
Right.
Are you justified? Do you know the laws in your area? Are you familiar with them? And have you been training in scenarios that help solidify and create better retention of those laws? So that when you have a situation happen, you're like, oh, I can't do anything about this. I really need to leave.
Yeah.
Right? Or now you realize, I have no other choice in this scenario.
Yeah.
Now I have to apply force. Okay. So these things are all things that law enforcement are going to collect, and they're going to create their case, and they're going to have that over to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor is going to analyze it, and they're going to look at it and make a decision about whether they feel they can successfully prosecute that case. And that is a big moment. And if you've done a lot of these things that we're talking about, your chances of them not prosecuting you in the first place, which is the most optimal outcome, right? We can't help that person chose to create this scenario where you had to defend yourself.
Right.
But that creates that's the best possible outcome if they say, okay, you know what, we agree this is a self-defense scenario, and we will not be prosecuting this case. Okay, wonderful. That's good, right? There's also another field that I'd like to talk about that are not hard skills, that are lifestyle decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And this one might be a little sensitive.
Uh-oh.
Are you good with this?
Oh, listen, I'm not sensitive. Until I'm sensitive.
Right. Okay, man. There are prevailing attitudes in our community sometimes, and they don't always help us out if we look strategically down the road, right? I'm still looking at that 2-year mark.
Okay.
Okay. Here's a few of them.
Okay.
I've got a shirt from Factor Tactical, and it's got General Mattis, General Mad Dog Mattis on it.
Wow.
Famous
Mattis.
general. Right?
Yeah.
Dude is something else, man. He is legit.
Mm-hmm.
And on the front of that shirt, it says Secretary of War. Right?
Mm-hmm.
On the back of that shirt, there's a quote from General Mattis.
Uh-oh.
And it goes like this: be polite, be professional, have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? Now, taken out of context, that was something that he said to his Marines
Right.
as they were going in.
To the battlefield.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Battlefield context.
That makes sense.
Right.
But on a shirt, on my shirt, it's a little spicy.
Yeah.
Right?
I hope you're not sleeping in that shirt when you just defended yourself from a home invasion. That's for sure.
So that's my point exactly.
Right.
Okay? Because that can be relevant. It's not evidentiary, right? It's not the case in chief, right? The case in chief is going to be on this day, at this time, at this location, you shot this person with this firearm and they died as a result of their injuries, right? And then they're going to say, and he was wearing this shirt that said, have a plan to kill everyone.
Right.
Okay. I call those shirts my pajama wear, my leisure wear, right? When I'm at the house and I'm just hanging out, I will wear a shirt like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't reflect my mentality.
Right.
And the best way no one will see that or even suspect that is if I don't wear that when I'm out and potentially encounter a situation.
Right.
So my wife asked me the other day, she's like, hey, can we go to the store? I need to pick up a few things. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Let me change my shirt.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Strapped up, different shirt. We went to the store. No worries, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's happening is prosecutors are using that type of information as window dressing.
Of course.
They'll take it and they'll use just about anything they can
Mm-hmm.
against you
Mm-hmm.
in your case, if they decide to prosecute, right? Now, let's say that your case is up there. It's one of those things that they're looking at, they're analyzing, and they're like, oh, man, I don't know. But then you had that shirt on.
Yeah.
There are two components, and these are Latin terms that are kind of silly, but this is what's used. This is the coin of the land, right? Corpus delicti is the body of evidence. That's the main facts of the case, the stuff that I just mentioned, location, the firearm used, all of that kind of stuff. Mens rea means guilty mind, and mens rea is intent. That's the best way to remember it. You can take a set of actions and say, man, you shot that guy 5 times. And if you can prove that you had the intent to take that person out, that's a difference in a felony, one different level of felony.
Yeah. Yeah.
And intent in general is a component of the law that is so crucially important. They have a steep hill to climb in proving that sometimes. But let's say you have that shirt that I just mentioned, and you have a doormat out front that says, we don't call 911.
Oh my God.
I know you love that one. You got that one, right?
I definitely
No?
don't have that.
You have
one.
some mud flaps on your truck? That
No,
said
no mud flaps, no truck nuts, none of that stuff, man.
Okay. I'm playing, but
No, for sure.
it's out there.
Yeah,
It's out there.
absolutely.
And unfortunately, prosecutors can bring this stuff in. Now, the defense will fight it.
Mhm.
They're going to say that it's not evidentiary, it's not relevant to the case.
Mhm.
And the prosecutor is going to fight back. They're going to
Mhm.
say, oh, no, it absolutely goes toward mindset. And
Right.
it is completely relevant to this case. And the judge will ultimately make that ruling,
Right.
right? Best way to avoid that.
Mm-hmm. To not make it a factor at all.
Yeah, man.
Man, some people love their mud flaps, man. That's
Sure they
all
do.
I'm saying.
Sure they do. And you know, I've seen a couple of Punisher skulls as I've been walking around the expo today. Hey, man, we have the First Amendment. You know, that's one of the beautiful things about this country. We can express ourselves in that regard. But I'm just saying that there might be ramifications for those kind of things. If you have something, so there was an officer not too long ago that had something pretty spicy on their AR-15,
Ooh.
and they used that in a shooting, and that was not good.
You know, that's so interesting you should say that too, because people really don't think that far ahead. They don't realize that if they deploy a fire, like, okay, so like on their AR-15, you would think that that's not a big deal, right? You do know that photos of that AR-15, if not the AR-15 itself, is going to make its way into the court case, right?
Mhm.
So at that point, yeah, it is relevant.
And they're going to be viewed by a jury of your peers who are judging you, and I mean judging you, not in the biblical sense, not in the sociological sense. They are judging you. They're going to determine your fate.
Yeah.
And so having a dust cover that when it pops open and says you're screwed, and I'm being kind in that description, man, that's not good.
Yeah.
That is not a good look, and it's not the mentality that you want to convey.
Right.
Here's what ideally you want to have happen. And granted, like we talked about the suspect, because they always have a say in how the scenario is going to turn out. I want to be able to say, oh man, look, yep, that situation initially happened over here. I saw that happening, and I wanted to disengage. I walked away. The guy followed me. I said, sir, please stay back. I don't want to have anything to do with this. I realize you're upset. Sir, stay away, sir. Tried to get in my car. He grabbed me. He produced a weapon. I defended myself, you know. And multiple times, like I said, you don't get to cherry pick. You don't get to write your scenario. But if you make efforts to disengage, and if you try and you're constantly defeated by this person who keeps pushing the agenda, that is when you're going to have the cleanest defense.
Right.
And that is when the prosecutor is going to look at that case. And here's a little bit on the analysis of how a prosecutor looks at a case. We like to think that justice is the main ideal of the DA's office, of the prosecutorial offices, and how they approach what they do. That is very important, but it's not the mainstay.
Right.
One of the things that they look at is, on my best day, with my best jury, can I successfully prosecute that case?
Right.
And I mean like a 80% chance or better.
Right.
And they get better the more they do it on what their odds are. They look at cases. We have meetings about cases, and we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of those cases. And what you want to see when that prosecutor looks at that case is a bunch of things stacked in your favor.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Because if they don't think that they have an 80% chance or better, I'm kind of rounding off here, of successfully prosecuting you, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the people that elected them to not prosecute that case. And that's kind of hard, because if you come at a case and you think of, oh man, this he's good for it. He did it. I think he's the bad guy. Then we need to go after him, right? That's justice. But in this case, because our taxpayers fund the prosecutors, they have to be responsible with how they spend that money.
Right.
And if they think there's more than likely chance that they will not win that case, then they are supposed to let it go, right? And you'll hear that in statements. It comes out later, unlikely to prevail at trial. And that's a beautiful thing, right?
Wow. Yeah.
More, even better still, is we feel like this was a justified use of force, a self-defense scenario.
Right. Right. Wow. Sean, this has been an enlightening conversation. And guys, listen, this is only an extension of the presentation you gave earlier on the main stage over there here at USCCA Concealed Carry and Home Defense Expo. So these are the type of things you can look forward to as a USCCA member, or even a non-member. You know, this is open to the public. But again, as a member, you have constant access to all of this key knowledge and information, and that's why we're bringing it to you now. Sean, this has been an absolute amazing
Brother, thanks for
conversation,
having me, man.
I appreciate you, brother. And keep on spreading that word and spreading that information. And I hope these people that are watching right now seek you out for it.
Appreciate it, man.
QVO Tactical.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.